Okay, let's get to it. My passion is to help people learn to sing, to discover technique, to help them improve on what they previously thought they could do. What I've learned over the last 24 years of teaching contemporary vocal technique is that using the foundation of classical technique gives us the ability to sing pretty much any style of technique if you're willing to put in the time and energy it takes to study the different stylistic elements which create each individual style. So it all boils down to healthy breathing, healthy production, healthy vowel shaping, and having an understanding of that. So understanding the mechanics of healthy vocal production is what vocal technique is. And this is what will help you if you want to learn how to sing hard rock, if you want to learn how to sing blues, jazz, folk, any of the contemporary styles of music. If you build your stylistic expression on a really solid foundation, you will be able to sing all the time, never worry about tiring your voice out. So that's what I mean by healthy. So why do we want to bother studying vocal technique is because it allows you longevity. You can sing all day, every week, every month, every year. So if your voice is feeling tired, it usually means you're doing something technically that is hurting your voice in some way. So that's why we study healthy vocal production. And the other reason is for creativity. You may start off as a folk singer and then start to get bored in that genre and want to branch out and try other things. If you have learned only how to sing that style of music, you may be stuck there. But if you have learned a healthy foundation of singing technique and then can go back to that and then use that to branch out into other genres, then you just allow yourself more creativity and more fun in your life. So that's my entire, the joy that I get the most out of my singing and helping other vocalists is to learn to expand on your skill set and to let that intuitive sort of yearning of, I love this style, I want to explore this style, go for it. Make sure you're singing with healthy technique. And if you start to get bored or start to want to branch out into somewhere else, all of that technique that you've learned can be used in other genres as well. So when we are talking about technique, essentially there's a couple of things that are the foundations that everyone should know. One is the vowels, where the vowels naturally fall when we say them, and that is how we will sing them. And then the other is understanding what is a head voice, what is a chest voice. For people who are just starting off, you hear singers and teachers talking about these things, but you don't necessarily really get what it is they're talking about. So I have tried to set this up so that I can sort of boil it down in a nutshell, and hopefully it'll make a little bit of sense to you and get you on the road to playing with your voice and really thinking of your voice as an instrument and having more fun with it. So this is my picture of a head, not the greatest drawer in the world, but it will hopefully do the job. So this lower line here is your tongue. Here's your mouth, your open singing mouth. You're singing an O vowel or an U vowel. So your tongue is relaxed, jaws loose and relaxed forward. And then this is your hard palate here. And the front, if you touch your tongue to the roof of your mouth, you feel the hard palate in the front of your mouth. If you keep going back with your tongue to the back, you feel the softer part. So this part here is hard, but this part back here is soft, and we can actually raise it up intentionally. If you haven't learned how to do this before, it will likely make you yawn, because when we yawn, the soft palate raises up. So that's a good way of first starting to get to know how to use this muscle. And really, you want to think of it as a muscle, because eventually you'll want to, some people say yawn on demand. You're not actually yawning on demand, you're just raising that muscle up. So this soft palate you can raise up, which gives us all of this extra space in the mouth for singing, for resonating your sound inside your head. So we want to think of your skull as being the resonating chamber, and then we're creating this space in here by raising the soft palate so that we can have more sound inside our heads. And so the vibration of the sound is what we as singers get to control. So as you learn to control this vibration, you can decide if you want the soft palate way up or if you want it halfway up, 3/4, 1/4 of the way. And each little element you change will change the sound of your tone. So you can use your voice like a painter is painting. So you can change the colors, you can add a little bit of white or a little bit of black to make it a little lighter shade or a little darker shade. You can change the color altogether. You can add breathiness. You can add a vibrato. There's just so many ways you can play with your tone. But what you need to know is where the vowels naturally fall and what are the natural tendencies of the vowels. So think always of the oo as your most centered vowel. So the oo naturally falls right here in the center of the head and the soft palate. I've actually drawn this a bit off. So nice in the center is our oo vowel. So when we say oo, especially if you can try to say it like a hooting of an owl, hoo, 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 you'll feel, oh yeah, I can feel the soft palate moving up, hoo, hoo, and singing, the sound feels like it's happening in the middle of the head. As opposed to E, if you say the word E, or you say he, you can feel it right in the front of the face, it's right in the teeth here. So the E tends to be the vowel that falls the most forward, is our E vowel. And then ah, if you say ah, 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 it falls back here. So ah tends to fall back. So you'll notice in the exercises that we do a lot in vocal training is we play with these vowels. Why? Because what we're trying to do is close the gap between the ah and the oo and the E and the oo. So when we are training our voice, we want to have ooey sounding E's so that we're bringing the placement of the E a little bit further back into the center of the head, or bringing the placement of the ah to the center of the head. What can happen when the placement falls back is we can get the pitch false, and so we can get flat singing. What can happen when the placement falls forward is it gets kind of nasally sounding or shallow sounding. So as you start to experiment and play with this kind of thing, you can start to control what's going on for you. I've had students who sing just naturally, they just sing back here and they're constantly going flat and they're constantly frustrated. They have a beautiful smoky, really cool jazzy sound, but they're constantly going flat. So learning how to place the vowels forward, bringing the vowel forward to get a more centered sound is also going to help correct the pitch. So in between the oo and the E, we have eh, wrong color here, EH, and here we have O. So these ones fit in between those two. So generally speaking, we want to always practice singing through our vowels and always being very aware of where the placement is. Now, the other thing that you need to know about placement is depending on the style of music you're singing, you may actually really want a forward sound. Usually not nasal, but pretty close. So it's really forward and in the mask. It's a more spoken style sound, which you'll hear in a lot of folk singing, a lot of rock singing, a lot of the South African style songs that we learn. They're really masky, so they're very, very bright. Whereas more traditional jazz was more centered, and the opera sort of style is more centered and back. They really utilize the back here. Okay, so now what is a register? Some of you may have sung in choirs before where you were told you're an alto or you're a soprano, tenor, or bass. What I have had the opportunity to discover over the 24 years I've been teaching is that the majority of my singers have been able to accomplish being able to sing for females right down to a second alto, right up to the soprano one. So I absolutely am a believer that you can build your range over time, but the key is you have to use it. If you are only using your range in the alto or in the soprano range, then that part of your range is constantly being developed while the other part isn't. So what I really recommend students do if they're very serious about wanting to build their range is sing in the weaker part of your range. So if you naturally like to sing in your in the alto range and more in your chest voice, then take time and sing up in your head voice as much as possible. Maybe take a whole year of singing in your choir as a soprano and switch around. For those of you who have not got a clue what I'm talking about, head voice, chest voice, I'm going to explain that right now. So the highest note you can possibly sing and the lowest note you can possibly sing, you'll notice have very different qualities. So I will just sing a note close to the low end of my range. So if I sing ah, ah, there's certain qualities that you're hearing there which are completely different from so we've got really different qualities happening, and what we want to do is learn how to go as smoothly and beautifully as possible from your lowest right up to your highest, and to make it sound completely effortless, like it's just a piece of cake. Of course, it is not just a piece of cake, and we work actually a fair amount at learning how to, what I refer to, shift gears. It's like shifting gears in a stick shift car. So every voice has a major break in it, and we usually refer to that as chest voice and head voice. But there are also minor breaks within each of those, and you can learn how to mix your chest voice and your head voice together. So in a nutshell, here's your highest note, here's your lowest note. So if I were to start singing in my lowest note, lowest, and started moving up, I would sing da 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 da. You can hear it. The higher I get, the more it's starting to sound a bit pinched, a bit pushed. That is the chest voice, and I'm getting to the top of the chest voice. I'm not going to be able to continue on with that beefy, full chest voice sound. I'm going to have to switch gears. So, da, da. Can you hear that? Ah, that kind of back and forth. That is the end of my chest voice. So let's say that was right here. So here's my chest voice. So if I take that note, da, instead of trying to get it in my chest, da, where it's going back and forth, I'll sing it in my lighter, da, head voice. A lot of people who spend a lot of time singing down here, as soon as they switch gears into that head voice, they don't like it. Sounds wimpy, sounds too pretty, it sounds too girly. But if you want to develop a full range, you got to get to know it. Take the time to get to know it. Just know that you can beef it up. It's not always going to sound so dainty and so pretty. But da 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 da. Okay, wait a minute. I'm still in my head voice, but I've crossed over into this chest area. So this is what happens with every voice, is that you'll have your high note and it will go into, you'll end up with this kind of area here that you can sing in your head voice or your chest voice. So this is what I refer to as the crossover area. Crossover. So you can be switching gears anywhere in here to get a smooth transition between your chest and your head voice. And then what we practice over the years is developing the ability to smoothly switch gears anywhere in this crossover area. You start to notice the crossover area starts to expand. Your crossover area becomes wider and wider until you actually only have a little band of a few notes at the top that are pure head voice and a few notes at the bottom that are pure chest voice. Everything else is actually a mixed sound. And when you have a mixed sound, that's when you have elements of that chest voice, which is kind of beefy, grounded, sort of more rooted. But by itself, it can start to sound a little bit squashed. When you add the head voice elements, that brings height and beauty and sort of elevated purity to the sound. And so as a painter, you can paint whatever color of voice you want for whatever style of music you're singing. So try to think of it as you are not stuck with the sound that you have. You can play and play and play and create all kinds of different qualities of sound. Okay, so I'm just going to give a little demonstration of some of the elements of what I've been talking about. So if I were to take the popular song Summertime, now if I were to start off, and I'll give an example of the first phrase that's just purely in a chest voice. My soft palate is not going to be raised up, so just a relaxed sort of neutral soft palate. And I'm going to be singing central in the center of my head, so sort of in that ooh space. And just give you an example of what that sounds like so as a baseline, and then we'll compare it with adding other elements in. So here we go. It goes, summertime and the living is easy. Fish are jumping and the cotton is high. So there were a little bit of artistic elements coming about. I was trying to keep it really neutral. So that was chest voice. Let's now hear what the exact same notes sound like in a head voice. Still I'm going to keep the soft palate neutral and placement neutral. So summertime and the living is easy. That was chest voice. Fish are jumping and the cotton is high. So I really only had to dip into chest voice on the very lowest note there. So now let's add some other elements in. So let's go back to the chest voice sound. I'm going to raise the soft palate up and I'm going to give it some vibrato. So summertime and the living is easy. Fish are jumping and the cotton is high. I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to add in a bit of breathiness. Summertime and the living is easy. The fish are jumping and the cotton is high. Now I'm going to go back to the head voice, but I'm going to raise the soft palate up and give it some vibrato. Summertime and the living is easy. Fish are jumping and the cotton is high. Now I'm going to add a little bit of breathiness into that. Summertime and the living is easy. Fish are jumping and the cotton is high. Now I'm going to try to mix a little bit of that head voice with a little bit of the chest voice. Some vibrato some of the time, and still keeping it fairly neutral in terms of placement. Summertime and the living is easy. The fish are jumping and the cotton is high. So lastly, what I'm going to now show you is exactly what I just did, but I'm going to bring the placement forward in the mask, which will really change the sense of what genre I'm singing. Summertime and the living is easy. Fish are jumping and the cotton is high. So you can hear that. Cotton is high. It's right up forward in my face as opposed to back here. Cotton is high. Which is a kind of more neutral, middle of the road. If I were really to let the placement fall back, cotton is high. Almost starts to become like a swallowed sound. So depending on the song you're singing, the style of music that you're singing, the room that you're singing in, if you're singing in a really small room, you maybe don't want a huge sound. Or if you're singing in a big room, then you need a bigger sound. Sometimes breathiness is appropriate, sometimes not. So my whole point of demonstrating and teaching you all these techniques is really just about freeing you up to discover what's inside, to sort of go delving in and have the opportunity to experience an artistry that you might not even know exists. So one step at a time, just start playing around with your voice. Try out the exercises, see how you can incorporate them into your life. Singing is probably one of the easiest instruments to study because your body is your instrument and you take it with you wherever you go. So you can practice when you're walking to the bus, you can practice while you're chopping vegetables, you can practice while you're mowing the lawn, you can be practicing all the time. So the key to healthy singing and healthy vocal technique is really about conscious awareness of what you're doing. So I hope I've inspired you to just go exploring with your voice and to start building some foundational skills so that you can start playing around with all kinds of different styles of music and with different parts of your range.